Hello, and welcome to the Mid-Ohio Valley Public Forum video podcast. I'm Jennifer Bryant.
And I'm Kim Van Ryn.
And we're your co-hosts. The current pandemic has changed life greatly throughout our country.
And this is an election year. One of the big changes is that candidates can't campaign the way they normally would. So we hope this podcast will enable you to get better acquainted with the candidates so you can make more informed choice when you vote.
If you're a candidate and you're interested in being interviewed, you can reach out to us through our Facebook page, the MOV Public Forum, or through our email. That's movpublicforum@gmail.com. You should do it soon, though, because Election Day is less than a month away, and people are already voting.
Mm-hmm. Today we'll be interviewing Natalie Cline. Natalie is running for the U.S. House of Representatives for District 1. Welcome, Natalie. We're so glad you could join us this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
For those of you who may have missed our conversation with Natalie during the primary, which we're going to link in the comments below, take just a minute and give us a very short introduction to who Natalie Cline is and why you decided to run for office.
So I work as a computational linguist for a software company. I'm not even going to bother, going into what it is. It's boring unless you are a computational linguist. Needless to say, I never thought I'd become a politician. It's like the last thing I ever thought I would do or, had any desire to do. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of a beautiful 5-year-old boy who keeps me just as busy as this and my job. And, I'm a West Virginia native. I'm born and raised in this district. I'm born in Parkersburg, raised in Williamstown, have lived in Morgantown. My husband and I live in Wheeling now. He's also from Wheeling. And the big thing for us was that kind of nostalgia of what we felt West Virginia was in the 80s when we were growing up here. I grew up down the street from my grandma, and so did my husband. Grew up down the street from his grandma. In fact, we live in her house. We bought her house when we moved back, so we're 2 doors down from my in-laws, so my son gets to know his family. And that's one of the reasons, the main reason that we moved back from DC is we wanted him to know his family, experience a close-knit community like we had growing up, and be raised with those same West Virginia values that we were raised with. And it was just kind of one of those things where we hadn't been back very long. My son was only 2 when we moved back. And it just really kept bothering me that I was seeing a difference in my community that I didn't quite notice 5 years previous when we lived here. And it bothered me that I was feeling a little bit of a culture shock and kept thinking, like, I keep saying to people, like, how can a place that made me who I am cause me to feel culture shock? And that bothered me, but it didn't weigh on me. It bothered me. But what really started to weigh on me was when I was, reconnecting with old friends and making new friends who have small children like my son, and in our discussions and encounters, and realizing that so many kids in my son's cohort are also victims of the opioid epidemic. And the stresses that they face in life are greater than the stresses that most adults have ever faced. And that's the thing that kept weighing on me and prompted me to get into this. I don't think that any child should ever have to worry about if their family is going to be evicted from their house. I don't think any child should be worried about where their next meal is coming from. And we sadly are facing this in our state right now. And so are other states that have been ravaged by the opioid epidemic. And sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. There's a car alarm going off. I don't know whose that is. Sorry. This is what happens when we go virtual and work from home now. But yeah, so for me, it was the idea that we need fresh ideas and a new vision for how to take care of the next generation so that the same thing doesn't happen to them. And along the way, I think we can make some better changes as to give them more opportunities so that they actually can choose to stay in West Virginia when they're grown up. And I don't know a mother or grandmother who doesn't want their babies and grandbabies to stay close to home.
Well, Natalie, we take for granted that you're running for Congress in order to, for the benefit of the people in District 1. So take a moment and tell us, what do you think are the 3 biggest issues that are facing the people in District 1?
I would say healthcare, broadband, and jobs. And I think that the broadband issue's really been brought to light with coronavirus.
Yeah, I'm from the southern part of the state. I grew up in Logan County, and I know that that's a huge issue for a lot of the people who I went to school with who now have children who are doing this blended learning or just virtual learning. Um, it's really difficult when you don't have reliable internet. So I know that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific plans that you, want to address those issues with, or maybe ideas of how to set into motion some some sort of actionable idea that will help bring about change on those issues?
Sure do. I'm a firm believer in you don't show up to a job unprepared. So we're ready. We've already got 5-ish, a solid 4, working on a 5th policy proposal that we can go to start getting co-sponsors for once elected, and start actually making changes that all of us can feel here at home, and that will positively affect our lives. But the biggest one touches on why I said I was running. And it's this policy idea is 1.5 years in the making, and we're calling it the Family Reinvestment Act. And essentially, it's going to work very much like FEMA works, except for medical crises. This was thought of way before we even had heard the word COVID. So it's not really, a COVID answer, but it will help to heal communities that have been severely affected by some type of medical or social crises. So you can look at areas in West Virginia and some other regions across this country that have been affected by the opioid epidemic as a prime example. And what it will do is it will take into account their population and the percentage of, addiction incidents, and say, okay, you need X amount of money so you can get X amount of medical clinics to open up and hire enough staff, have enough beds for everybody, rehabilitation centers, and mental health programs, so that we can start treating and healing our communities. But the biggest caveat of the policy proposal that we want to put forth, and it will be like the hill I die on, is that we have to also address this inside of our public schools. Right now in our public schools, we have an issue where, number one, we don't have a full-time nurse in every single one of our public schools. Many of our nurses are traveling between 2 and 3 different schools, so they're never in one school all day. And number two, when you talk to our teachers, who are saints, by the way, and are making sure that our kids have a nutritious meal and they're the first line of defense for our kids, and they're able to recognize an issue before anybody else many times, what they can't do is take our kids to the doctor. So the Family Reinvestment Act will ensure that we have enough school nurses in each school. Again, depending on how large the school is how many nurses they would need. It'll make sure we have the funding for enough school nurses. It will also ensure that we have mental health programs in these schools and counselors available full-time, because these kids are the biggest victims of this crisis, and we need to make sure we're taking care of them both physically and emotionally. That's the Family Reinvestment Act, and then I will go much more brief on the other two for the sake of time. But I believe that broadband is a utility, should be treated as a utility, and that our federal government needs to be championing this effort, just like the federal government did with the National Electrical Code, to make sure every household was able to connect to the electrical grid. They need to make sure that every household is able to connect to broadband and ensure that no one company can have a monopoly. And we need to make sure there's grant money in there so that when we have households with public school children that may not have needed broadband before, but are able to connect now, we can offset that cost if they have a financial need, to make sure that their child is able to access that public education. And then, we need more jobs. So I personally think that West Virginia has powered this country for, a very long time, and it's time that we continue to kind of reestablish our energy authority. And that's the name of the act that we want to put forth, to essentially reestablish our energy authority in this state and reward the workers in this state for all of the hard work that they have done. It has been on their backs and their lungs that we have powered this nation. And it's time that we bring jobs back to them that are good, family wage paying jobs. And instead of incentivizing companies that are bringing workers in from out of state, we're going to incentivize alternative energy companies and other manufacturing and production companies to come here, but they will have a requirement to hire 80% of their workforces from our locales, and also be held to ethical standards that they cannot further pollute and contaminate our drinking water.
Well, one thing is the voters don't often get a chance to get to know candidates on a personal level. And especially now when, we're doing all this social isolation stuff, social distancing. So we would like to ask you a few questions to help voters get to know you as a person rather than a candidate.
Sure.
So what would you say you are most passionate about?
Obviously doing things with my kid. I love more than anything when I get to teach him something new. I used to be a teacher, so I think that's just part of me, to feel like I'm accomplishing something and teaching him and watching him react and learn. But as far as me personally, when I take my bias out of it with my child, I would say art. I paint. I'm an oil painter, so that's my thing.
So what qualities do you most value in the people around you?
This one is difficult because I feel like it has changed since I decided to do this. Before, I feel like I appreciated kindness. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still appreciate these things I'm saying right now. Kindness and empathy and, nurturing type of personalities. And I still value those, a lot. But I feel like I'm adding to that as I do this and meet people, where to be able to objectively reason and see the full spectrum of the issue and make a decision that is selfless. And I know that, and I think that's one of the most difficult things for people to do. So when I do get to see that in somebody, it's just kind of like, wow. And in this kind of political environment, it's very rare to find. But I've definitely noticed it in a couple of people, and I really appreciate that. I wish we could all figure out how to do that.
You'd probably be better off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what do you like to do in your off time? You said you like to paint with oils, and I'm sure spending time with your son.
Yeah, those are the big ones. Painting. I haven't done a new painting in over a year now, from start to finish. I've started a couple when I thought, I need to just take, a day break or something, and I start something and then I hate it and I never finish it. So I would love to do that again. Right now, every free moment I have goes straight to Teddy, my 5-year-old. So he likes to shop. That's really fun for me. And he loves to play games. So we play a lot of games. And I feel like our shopping experiences are, what kind of new game can we get, or some kind of imaginative toy. His imagination's amazing. And the things he acts out, it's incredible.
Well, with that, we've come to the end. We'd love to give you a few minutes to tell us and the voters anything else you think we need to know. including how to get more information on your campaign, how to donate, get involved, get a yard sign, etc.
Thank you. So thank you for having me on. This is great. I really appreciate all that you're doing and giving people a voice and making sure our messages get out there. It's really important for people to be able to access their candidates as much as possible. And in COVID times, that's very difficult. So this is one of the best ways for people to understand where each candidate is coming from. So thank you for that. For us, you can reach us online at natalieclineforcongress.com. And the links to our social are also on there too, but you can find me on Facebook with Natalie Cline for Congress, and also on Twitter at Natalie Cline WB. And right now we are phone banking, text banking. We have people doing handwritten postcards to voters, and we are trying to get as many signs out as possible. In Wood County, the Wood County mobile headquarters has some of our signs. So I know they've been posting, I think, weekly on Facebook where, you know, the times that they're going to have their mobile headquarters. So people can always go there and pick up a sign. Or if you're not in Wood County, feel free to contact us. The contact information is on our website again at natalieclineforcongress.com. And we can point you to the closest location to get a sign and figure out how to get one to you. Or if you want to volunteer to phone bank, text bank, or write postcards, that's also greatly appreciated. And you can reach out to us through the website.
All right. Well, Natalie, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this afternoon, and good luck with your campaign. Everyone, stay safe, and remember, wash your hands.
Thank you.